Hey, future policymakers, ready for another deep dive?
I sure am.
Today, we're tackling a mountain of current affairs.
The topics that could make or break your UPSC prep.
Exactly.
We've got Supreme Court rulings.
Geopolitical shifts.
You name it.
We're unpacking it.
And remember, for the UPSC,
Yeah.
it's not just about rattling off facts.
Right.
It's about understanding the why behind the headlines.
The why.
The potential consequences and how these events fit into the larger picture
Okay.
of governance, society, and global dynamics.
So kind of like connecting the dots.
Exactly like those intricate patterns in a kalamkari sari.
Each thread, each color.
Have a specific significance.
Okay, let's dive into the first section. Judiciary and governance.
Sounds good.
The Supreme Court has been busy,
Oh, they have?
handing down some landmark judgments,
Definitely.
particularly in the realm of madrasa education.
Yes, the madrasa education cases are a great example
Okay.
of how the judiciary grapples with balancing fundamental rights,
Balancing those rights.
like the right to education
Right.
and religious freedom.
Uh-huh.
The Uttar Pradesh Madrasa Education Act came under scrutiny,
It did.
with the Allahabad High Court initially declaring it unconstitutional.
Wow, unconstitutional.
They argued that making Islamic religious education compulsory
Okay.
went against the principles of secularism
Interesting.
and hindered access to quality education,
I see.
as envisioned by the Right to Education Act.
Right, because the focus was primarily on religious instruction,
Yeah,
with modern subjects being optional.
right.
But then the Supreme Court stepped in,
They did.
and things got interesting.
The Supreme Court partially overturned that ruling,
Okay.
emphasizing that the state does have a role
Uh-huh.
in regulating madrasa education
Okay.
to ensure it aligns with broader educational goals
Aligning with the goals.
and secular principles.
I see.
They upheld certain provisions related to curriculum development
Okay.
and having a regulatory framework in place.
So a delicate balancing act, ensuring that religious education doesn't come at the cost of access to a well-rounded education.
Exactly.
And speaking of balancing acts,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court is also hearing petitions
Right.
on a topic that's been debated for years,
Uh-huh.
criminalizing marital rape.
It's a complex issue
It is.
with strong arguments on both sides.
Both sides.
The sources you've shared highlight the ongoing debates
Okay.
about the burden of proof,
Burden of proof.
the potential for misuse of such a law,
Misuse.
and the need for clear guidelines
I see.
to ensure fairness and protect against false accusations.
Protecting against accusation.
But at the heart of it,
Yeah.
it's about evolving societal norms,
Societal law.
legal frameworks,
Uh-huh.
and how India's laws align with global perspectives
Aligning with global perspective.
on women's rights and consent within marriage.
It's interesting to see how other countries have tackled this.
It is.
Some like Australia, Canada, and the U.S.
Right.
criminalized marital rape decades ago,
Decades ago.
showing how legal reform can often reflect changing societal values
Yes.
and a growing recognition of human rights.
Exactly. It's important for you,
For us,
as UPSC aspirants, to understand these global trends
global trends.
and how India is engaging with these evolving norms on issues like gender equality and justice.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
the Supreme Court also addressed the issue of caste-based labor assignments in prisons,
Yes,
a topic that resonates with the principles of equality and social justice
absolutely.
enshrined in our Constitution.
This judgment is a powerful statement
Powerful.
against the perpetuation of caste-based discrimination,
Okay.
even within the confines of prisons.
Within prisons.
The court directed all states
All states
to revise their prison manuals,
to revise
to eliminate practices that assign work based on caste.
based on caste.
They highlighted how this violates Articles 14, 15, 17, 21, and 23 of the Constitution,
Wow, so many articles.
which guarantee equality, prohibit untouchability, and protect the right to life and dignity.
Essentially, the court was saying that prisons should focus on rehabilitation,
Right.
not reinforcing societal hierarchies
Mm-hmm.
that can hinder an individual's chances of reintegration into society.
Precisely.
Reintegration.
It's about upholding the fundamental rights of all citizens,
All citizens,
regardless of their background or circumstances.
regardless of background.
And for those of you focusing on social justice and prison reform,
Okay.
this judgment offers valuable insights
Insight.
into how the judiciary interprets and applies constitutional principles
Applying those principles.
to ensure a fairer and more equitable society.
Okay, now let's move to a case that's specifically relevant for Assam.
Okay.
The Supreme Court upholding the constitutional validity of Section 6A of the Citizenship Act.
This section has significant implications
Okay.
for Assam's demographics, politics, and cultural identity.
Big implications.
It grants citizenship to migrants from specific territories
Like
who entered Assam before March 24th, 1971,
before 1971.
which differs from the cutoff date for the rest of India.
Interesting.
The court's decision, while upholding the law, acknowledged the complex historical and social context of Assam
The context of Assam.
and how this provision could impact the state's unique dynamics.
So even though the legal issue is settled,
Yes.
the broader implications for Assam's society and politics are something you should keep an eye on,
Absolutely keep an eye on that.
especially as you study the interplay of law, identity, and regional dynamics in India.
The very important interplay.
Okay, now shifting focus to another area where the Supreme Court weighed in.
Okay.
Let's talk about Benami transactions,
Benami transactions,
a topic that's closely linked to the government's efforts to curb black money and tax evasion.
right?
So the recent judgment clarified the application of the Benami Transactions Prohibition Amendment Act 2016,
So it's 16.
which essentially outlawed these transactions where property is held in one person's name but actually belongs to someone else, often to conceal illegal income or dodge taxes.
Concealing income.
The court's clarification focused on the prospective application of the act,
Okay.
meaning it doesn't apply retroactively to transactions that happened before the amendment was passed.
Oh, for the amendment.
So the court was drawing a clear line saying that people can't be penalized for actions that weren't illegal at the time,
At the time.
a key principle of legal fairness.
Exactly. A key principle.
And this judgment is important for understanding how the judiciary balances the government's efforts
yes.
to combat economic offenses with the principles of legal certainty and fairness.
Important to balance those.
Okay, let's shift gears now
All right.
and dive into the world of international relations and geopolitics,
A popular section.
a section that's always a hot topic for the UPSC.
Absolutely.
And one issue that's been making headlines globally
Okay.
is China's use of economic coercion
China's used.
as a tool to influence other countries' decisions.
This is a trend that has raised concerns worldwide, with countries feeling the pressure of China's economic clout.
Economic clout.
We're seeing pushback from various quarters with groups like the Quad,
The Quad.
which includes India and the G7 taking a stand against these coercive practices.
Taking a stand.
They're advocating for a rules-based international order
A rules-based order.
where countries are free to make their own choices
Make their choices.
without facing economic retaliation.
And India is right in the thick of it,
Right in the thick of it.
navigating these complex geopolitical currents.
Those currents.
The sources mention that India is developing a new standard operating procedure, SOP,
An SOP.
for trade negotiations,
I see.
aiming to ensure its trade deals are more balanced
Balanced deals.
and protect its interests.
Protecting interests.
It's a strategic move.
It is strategic.
India is trying to be proactive, safeguarding its economic interests,
Safeguard.
while also participating in multilateral efforts to push back against economic coercion.
Pushing back.
This new SOP is likely to be a key topic
A key topic.
for those of you preparing for the international relations section of the UPSC.
Absolutely key for that section.
Now let's zoom in on some specific bilateral relationships
Okay.
that are crucial for India's foreign policy.
Crucial relationship.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited India recently,
He did.
and it seems like the relationship between the two countries is getting stronger.
Strong relationship.
This visit was a clear signal of the growing strategic partnership between India and Germany.
Definitely.
They're not just economic partners.
Right.
Germany being India's largest trading partner within the EU,
Largest partner.
but their collaboration is extending into defense and strategic alignment,
I see.
particularly in the Indo-Pacific region.
The Indo-Pacific.
So it's a multifaceted relationship
It is multifaceted.
that's evolving in response to the changing global landscape,
That changing landscape.
particularly China's growing influence.
China's influence.
What were some of the key takeaways from this visit?
Well, they signed agreements on intelligence sharing.
Intelligence
And
sharing.
are working towards a mutual legal assistance treaty,
Oh.
signaling a deepening of trust and cooperation on security matters.
Trust and cooperation.
This also reflects a broader trend
A trend
of European countries looking towards India
looking towards India.
as a key partner for maintaining stability in the Indo-Pacific.
Maintaining stability?
Another significant, but perhaps more complex visit
More complex?
was from the president of Maldives, Mohammed Yusuf.
President Musu.
This one is interesting because of the history between the two countries.
The history.
Including Musu's previous India Out campaign.
The India Out campaign.
Yes. This visit was definitely a step towards resetting the relationship. Despite past tensions. Particularly over the presence of Indian military personnel in the Maldives.
Military personnel.
Both sides seem to be acknowledging the importance of a strong partnership. Driven by strategic considerations and economic realities.
Considerations and realities.
They agreed to boost defense and maritime security cooperation.
Boosting cooperation.
Alongside exploring economic opportunities. Including potential investments and infrastructure development.
Investments and development. It seems like both sides recognize that a strong India-Maldives relationship is crucial for stability and prosperity. In the Indian Ocean region.
That region.
And that pragmatic considerations are outweighing past differences.
It's a classic example of realpolitik in action.
Realpolitik.
And it's important for UPSC aspirants to understand these nuances. How economic vulnerabilities, strategic considerations, and regional dynamics influence a country's foreign policy decisions.
Okay, now let's talk about the big one, the India-China relationship.
The big one.
There's been a lot of tension along the border in recent years. But there's been some positive news recently. Yes, after years of military standoffs and tensions following the 2020 Galwan Valley clash.
The Galwan Valley clash?
India and China have agreed to resume patrolling at key friction points. Along the line of actual control.
The LAC.
Specifically in Depsang and Demchok. That sounds like a breakthrough.
It does sound like a breakthrough.
Why are these areas particularly significant?
Well, Depsang is strategically crucial because of its proximity to the Dalit Beg Oldie.
The Dalit Beg Oldie.
A vital post for India.
I see.
And its access to a plateau that could be used for military maneuvers. Resuming patrolling there is a positive sign. Suggesting a degree of disengagement and de-escalation.
So it's a step in the right direction. Even if it doesn't completely resolve the border issue.
Right. It's not completely resolved.
And it highlights the importance of dialogue and confidence-building measures in managing such complex and sensitive relationships.
Absolutely.
Now let's move beyond bilateral relationships. And talk about India's engagement with regional organizations. Starting with Asian. India has been actively participating in ASEAN summits.
They have.
Underlining its commitment to the Indo-Pacific region. And strengthening ties with Southeast Asian countries. The focus is on economic cooperation, digital partnerships, and improving connectivity. Think infrastructure projects. Trade agreements. On collaborations in areas like cybersecurity. It's all part of India's Act East policy, right?
It is.
Aimed at bolstering its presence and influence in the Indo-Pacific.
Exactly, bolstering that presence.
And it's important for UPSC aspirants.
It is.
To not just know the name of the policy. But to understand its objectives, the historical context, and the specific initiatives India is
undertaking those initiatives
as part of this policy.
Now, what about BRICS? Is that still a relevant grouping for India?
Especially with the recent expansion.
BRICS has been in the spotlight lately. Mainly because of its decision to add 6 new members. Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE.
Wow, a lot of new members.
This expansion is a sign of the shifting global power dynamics. With emerging economies seeking to have a greater say in global affairs. But it also presents challenges for the bloc. Potentially leading to more internal disagreements. And making it harder to reach a consensus on key issues. So it's a bit of a gamble. But it also reflects the changing geopolitical landscape. And the desire of these countries to create a counterweight to Western-led institutions. And it's crucial for UPSC aspirants to analyze the implications of this expansion. How it might impact global governance. Trade patterns. And even India's own position within the bloc. Now, let's talk about a conflict that's been escalating. One that always raises concerns for the region and the world.
Concerns.
The Israel-Iran conflict.
The Israel-Iran conflict.
The recent violence with Israel launching retaliatory strikes on Iran.
Strikes on Iran.
Has heightened anxieties.
Anxieties.
About the